Welcome to the Truth Expedition. I am your host, Mark Bishofsky, and you've tuned into the program where we will dig for truth, scratch and claw and grind for some truth in this insane world where fact checkers lie and our own government and media propagandizes you and me, the citizens of this amazing republic. So this is our second in-person, in-studio interview that we will be having, and it's an honor to have our guest here today. I will mention, most of the first few guests I've had on this program have been, famous to a certain degree, and so I've been blessed. Today's guest isn't famous yet, the key word being yet. I believe Mike McCarthy will hopefully, if things go the way I want and Mike wants, will someday at least be infamous for the project he is working on, the 1-2 project. I'm going to cover my face here so you can see this sign, but one race, two genders. It's called the 1-2 project. I had the opportunity I've known Mike McCarthy for going on a year and a half now. I met him at a pre-caucus event when I was starting my campaign, and ever since then he's been a mentor to me, given me some amazing advice, has taught me so much on this movement, this woke movement, this Marxist agenda that's being pushed and rammed down our throats. And so, Mike McCarthy, thank you so much for joining us on the Truth Expedition.
Well, Mark, it's such a pleasure to be here with you. We've had so many good conversations between the two of us. It's really nice to have the opportunity to share with others.
Get it out to the masses. So Mike's much wiser than myself, especially when it comes to the historical context of what we're facing in this country. And most of the folks tuning into this program, you are probably one who kind of maybe knew me through the medical freedom movement, but as you're going to learn, that it's all kind of wound and bound together with what Mike will describe as the 4 pillars of the woke and how we can fight. So I guess my first question, Mike, would be, what is your background that might give you some credibility in this fight, and why are you fighting this fight? I mean, you're retired and here you are fighting the fight for freedom.
This is not what I had planned to do in retirement, Mark. I had visions of disappearing into the boundary waters for a month at a time and things like that. But the pandemic provided opportunities. Many parents had the first time to actually see what was going on in their kids' education. Many of the rest of us had time to do serious reading, research, self-study. And my background has been very much in academics, consulting, administration, tackling tough problems and trying to make sense of things that don't always make sense. I've made a career out of it. I've been started out as a hard scientist, also worked as an economist, worked in administrative law, in and out of government. And it really equipped me with the tools to look at something, ask good questions. Often 80% is asking the good question, and then making observations and applying deductive reasoning to make sense out of what doesn't necessarily make sense. And one of my philosophies is, and you've heard me say this over and over, if I find myself saying, that doesn't make sense, that doesn't make sense, well, that doesn't make sense. What really is happening is, if that's persisting over time and space, is it does make sense to somebody else's set of rules. And the key to manage that, to defend yourself, and to counter it, is to understand what set of rules it makes sense to, so you can deal with it.
Yeah. So again, all these tidbits of wisdom you're going to get from Mike today. So before 2020, were you involved with putting up a fight? I mean, when did you recognize let's just say the gender, the pornography in the school books? When did you start to push back and put up a fight?
Well, it's interesting. I got engaged in politics really during the Reagan Revolution. Back in the 80s, I was engaged in conservative politics, more of the traditional party activities, organizing campaigns, supporting candidates, at one point, I had the great privilege to run for Republican endorsement for Secretary of State, and I lost to Mary Kiffmeyer, which was a wonderful experience, actually. We had a great time campaigning, and then she later hired me to come into government and work in the elections process. It was a real privilege, and it taught me a lot about the machinery of government, and that's turned out to be really valuable. When I went into the elections work, I stepped back from a lot of partisan politics, because in those days, that's what people in elections did. It was a very clean expectation. And so when I stepped away from my roles in most of the party activities, I really thought, well, that was going to be behind me. I thought, well, I've done that. I've done my share. I'm going to move on, do things professionally. And then came retirement, and I thought, okay, this is kickback time. And that was right when the pandemic hit. And that it really, like many of the parents, provided an opportunity to sit down and seriously reflect on my own experience, where I said, well, that doesn't make sense. I'm listening to this. That doesn't make sense. Well, what's the evidence? Where's the deductive reasoning that leads to this conclusion? And I found myself just doing this again and again and again. And so I began literally like going back to graduate school. I got the books, ordered the books, started my serious reading discipline every day, mid-morning to mid-afternoon. I began my research. I did historical studies, went back, looked at things that happened in other countries, other times, rise of tyranny, what's involved with the rise of tyranny, how does this happen to a free society? People forget that Germany in the 1930s began as a democracy. They were going to be a republic, and they went off track. A free society freely chose to go down this path, and I wonder, how did this happen, and what is our risk? And that's when I really started looking at the woke as a movement, as a mass movement, and I began to look at things like author Eric Hoffer described it in his famous book, The True Believer. What are the elements of a mass movement? What kind of people get engaged? Why do they get engaged? How are they finding what they perceive to be their motivation and fulfillment? Why do they do to the other people that disagree with them what they do? And that led me to the process where I really found the woke movement was indeed it's a mass movement. It's moving across the United States, Western Europe. It's one of the most terrible American exports right at this time. But it's really not that terrible to understand the fundamentals. And again, you've heard me really describe these. There's really 5 things that happen when a movement is on a march to the rise to power. And the very first thing that happens is, and I'm going to just hit my cheat sheet here for a moment.
Absolutely.
I'm old. I get my cheat sheet.
We're very informal here on the Truth Expedition.
So, the key thing is there's always a promise of utopia. No tyranny starts out saying, we're going to slaughter people. Now, every tyranny starts out, we're going to make the world a better place, Mark. It's going to be better for your children. We have a utopian vision, but only if it's done our way. And so the utopian vision gets posed, a savior class manifests itself. If you follow us, we have.
So who's the savior class?
The truth.
The elites, correct?
Well, it's
World Economic Forum. By 2030, you'll own nothing, be happy.
Yeah, it's this conglomeration of political power and industry. That it's both financial power and political power colluding effectively to move this agenda. The savior class is stealthy. The savior class are predators, and predators move quietly. The key is not to be seen. The lion on the savannah that isn't a stealthy, silent, secret predator goes hungry. They don't announce themselves to the gazelle. The gazelle's out there, nobody here but us gazelles in the happy grass, until the predator pounces. And we're at the moment of pounce. So the elite class promises utopia, establish itself as the answer source, the guiding hand. Then there's always a process in some manner where the population is led to surrender power. It's not seized, it's usually surrendered. mass movements are typically willingly entered into.
Like maybe create a crisis like a pandemic.
That's exactly right. We've had this chat, and the surrender power. It's an amazing thing to watch. We all just watched this, and it's terrifying.
And I think I'll interject there. So I believe the pandemic, the research I've done over the last several months too, and the interviews I've had with like Sasha Latipova and others, have really led me to believe that this was all planned. I mean, I think when we first met, you were unsure or couldn't really make up your mind on that. But at this point, do you believe like the scamdemic was a plandemic? Do you think otherwise?
Planning. Let me spin that just a little bit. A good predator doesn't need to place the gazelle. It looks for the opportunity. And whether or not the virus was accidentally released, purposefully released, whether it was funded,
they were ready to pounce
by America, no matter what the nature of the initiating moment was. When it was initiated, you see all 5 elements of this rise to power. All 5 elements.
They were ready.
All 5, yeah. I mean, these things do not happen by accident.
They had their arsenal in place, whether it was, intentional or accidental.
And so you had the promise of salvation, the utopia promise. You had the elite class. You had the surrender, willing surrender. Unlimited propaganda, which is the 4th step. And then you have the assignment of a scapegoat class.
And so you and I are the scapegoat.
Do you know anybody who might be in the scapegoat class?
It wouldn't be you or I. Yes.
But all 5 of these are clearly demonstrated through what we saw in the pandemic. The mask wearing became like an armband. It was a symbol of loyalty. Symbol of loyalty to what?
Together we can do this.
Right, to the movement. There is a movement afoot here. So we got the 5 steps to power. We've just watched one of the exercises on 5 steps to power. In the broader woke movement, though, what we've just seen is one part of one of the 4 pillars. We have 4 pillars that hold this mass movement up. And
so listen to these 4 pillars. I find this fascinating.
In my background, I was a modeler, among other things. And so the key of, when I look for things and I try to discern answers, the key is, does this predict what's coming? Does this explain what's already happened? And I think you'll see the answers are very much yes here. I found this to be both explanatory looking backward and predictive looking forward. The 4 pillars are, first, race. The utopia is a BIPOC utopia over the evil privileged white class.
Yeah.
The gender is unlimited, the utopia is unlimited sexual celebration of all behaviors, unbounded, unlimited. The privileged class is anybody who stands in the way, any of the moral authorities, any of the institutions that thwart that. The safety woke is very evident now that we've come through the pandemic. In the safety woke, society is frightened, and the promise of safety is made, but only through the programs of the movement. So the big pieces of the safety element we see is climate change. Kids are told, you're all going to die unless you do exactly what we say. You see the gun movement. You're all going to die unless you do exactly as we say. And during the COVID, you're all going to die unless you do exactly what we say. And if you're all going to die, and I'm now, as this mass movement, told I have to defend my life, you have no limits on what you do to the opposition if you perceive it as self-defense. This is a particularly dangerous pillar of the woke movement. And the 4th pillar is spiritual or religion, and it's essentially absence of religion, or more precisely, the replacement of traditional religions with worship of self and the woke movement itself as state-established religion.
Yeah, and all these are here. In fact, when we were talking cameras going live, came to mind is, God. In church yesterday, Christians are going to be persecuted. It's going to be worse. And in fact, I stumbled across this. So the state of Minnesota public schools offers like a assistance to homeschoolers. Imagine that. What would be involved with that? But you cannot use any curriculum to get this assistance if any of your curriculum has God in it. And all the curriculum we use at home is Christian based. So we couldn't even be a part of this program. They give you some, resources to use. So they're going to take God out of everything. Yeah. So I want the audience to know too the work that Mike's been doing. So he's a thorn in the side of so we both live in Stillwater, Minnesota, and Mike's been very active. I would say the most active person definitely in our school district, and it's disseminating too. The work he's doing, and we'll explain this in Stillwater, is kind of being moved outward, hopefully to have some effect in other school districts if we can team together. But Mike is the single largest and hurtful thorn in the side of the Stillwater school district. So what have you been doing as far as fighting for the schools? And did that start in 2020 as well? Is that when you kind of started, or were you going to school board meetings before that? So go ahead and elaborate
Mark,
on all that.
We're a resistance movement. We're living in occupied territory. And so all resistance movements need to look for where they can make effective difference in thwarting the progress of evil and supporting the defense of people who need defending. And the principal battle line in this fight generationally is to save the kids. Because when the kids are seized by the utopian people, and the kids are seduced by the utopian people, and the kids are convinced that their parents are old-fashioned, out-of-date, wrong, or a threat to them, then we've lost the society. And we're in the process of that kind of losing now. And that's why the first fight really needs to be in the schools. What happened that galvanized me on the school, I was supportive of some of our school board candidates in the previous couple of elections. I was involved with questioning some of the financial spending in the levy elections and some of the peculiarities in what led to some of those levy spending decisions. I come from the school district where parents sued the school board over campaigning on using the money for A and then doing a bait and switch and using it for B. And we're the school where the precedent was set that no, the school board actually doesn't have to do what they say when they have your money. That's a terrible embarrassment. Yes, we can lie to you, so suck it up. The moment that really galvanized me was very unexpected, so I sometimes call myself the accidental activist in the school movement. Our local school district, 2 days before Thanksgiving, an amazing coincidence, announced they were going to overhaul the curricula policy, the curricula review, the instructional material policies. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So I read it. And it essentially cut the community and parents out. And so I listened to the school board meeting. And they said, oh, we have community input, don't we, Mark?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yes. Well, we have the World's Best Workforce Committee. They're worked so hard, they're so wonderful. We've got all this input from the World's Best Workforce Committee. And pretty soon I began to hear this mantra over and over and over. Oh, this committee, they're so great. We got all this input. Everybody's on board. There's no dissent. Everybody's on board. This is just the best thing ever. And I'm looking at this and I'm thinking, well, what group, by statute, this is supposed to be a group composed of parents and community members, predominantly like 75%. And I thought, well, why in the world would these people ever say, oh yeah, we don't want to be involved? It just didn't make sense. So we started backing down this road of, how is this unfolding, what happened? And we really found that it was just school employees getting together in a room, essentially masquerading as public input, deciding that their own proposals were great. And wow, we don't want crazy parents involved. Let's get it our way. So it was really about that moment where I realized that, There's secrecy here. There's secrecy on purpose. And when we said that as a school board, we were really slapped around. Oh, completely open. Oh, yes, completely open. But the meetings aren't announced. These side meetings aren't announced. They're not calendared. There's no records kept. They're completely outside the public purview. And that was the beginning of the real catharsis of leaning into what needs fixing. Well, the secrecy, systemic secrecy, is what needs fixing. And that's really where we put a lot of our attention.
And there's been recent action on that. I don't know how much you can elaborate, or if there's something that we need to keep secret on that. But
we're about we have about a 2-day disconnect with the filming here. But the real important thing, and this is true, I'm finding everywhere, no matter where you are watching this in the state of Minnesota, I can almost positively guarantee that your school board is not following Minnesota open meeting law. When a governing body, what the school board is, delegates authority and they're conducting business delegated by the school board, that's open meeting. That's subject to public knowledge, public observation, public participation in many instances, and it's just routinely not happening. And I'm finding this to be true largely everywhere. The point there is coming back to the whole issue of curricula, books, things that go in your kids' hands. You know, why can't I see that as a parent? Because the decisions were made a year or a year and a half ago, completely outside of my view, completely outside of the hands of the employees using the materials. It's completely insular. And by the time I get to see it, by design, my only option is to have my kid shamed standing in the hallway, being excluded from using that one book in that one instance. It's just appalling.
Yeah, it truly is.
So you did ask a straight question. I'm not going to answer the one question. We've discovered in some research, and other parents are discovering this as well. It's not so much a point of with the schools, are they going to follow the law, but how much can they not follow before somebody calls them to task. So we have documented case, and I'm sure other documented cases where parents have asked straight up questions. I've got a kid in this class. I want to see the curriculum being taught. Can't get it. Can't get it. Why is that? Schools ignore it. We have a Minnesota Data Practices law. We make requests. They're ignored. They're supposed to be responded to under the law. They're ignored. By design, the need is to ensure that the law is enforced, and that takes anding up to come to the table. And most of the schools are banking that individual parent groups can't ante up and make sure data practices requests are really enforced and followed and responded to, and that open meetings are enforced and open and visible. And yes, we're looking at initiating an action. Hopefully by the time this film is up and running, people will be able to see that on Fixing Stillwater Schools website, which is mn834.org.
mn834.org. In fact, yeah, why don't we, if you can hear me, maybe bring up the 1-2 Project website too. A couple places you can find Mike McCarthy's work, but you can purchase these. I don't know if these are available yet, the yard signs. He's working on getting flags made also, and t-shirts, and I'm going to hold up the t-shirt here.
That's a good looking t-shirt you have there,
Yeah, and
Mark.
I wear this, and my son loves it. But so yeah, it shows the 1-2 Project. It's got the QR code, the website on there, one race, two genders, and then
now
on the
fun
back,
part.
The fun part. So it's go ahead and read that, Mike.
Well, it says DAD, and it's pronounced DAD. Human male parent protects boys and girls from predatory woke race and sex gender dogma. Well, that's kind of straight up there, Mark.
Yeah, it's
conversation
awesome.
starter,
It's
it?
like I wear this around and I get some looks, I tell you. And it's like, again, too, you on my street, rainbow flags flying everywhere. So I'm going to get one of these in my yards, and my question was how long before it's vandalized. But yeah, it's this to me. This is awesome, for lack of better words. That we need something to oppose all the rainbow flags. And, you go to a store and you see all are welcome here with the rainbow
key
flag.
Is, what is true?
What is true is subjective now, right?
Well,
it's all subjective.
But is it really? If I tell you you're sitting on a watermelon, Mark, and I assert that's my truth, is it real?
No, it's not.
No. So
objective truth.
That's right. So what we have to do, and this is why we really need to care, is we have to stand for objective truth, for objective reality. Because if we let that go, everything unravels. This is why everyone watching this needs to care about being one race and two genders.
Yeah.
The reason that's important is because it asserts truth. It is not just my truth, it's observable truth. Everything in Western civilization relies on objective reality, all the way back to the Greeks. The Greeks would say, well, how do I figure things out? Well, they'd say, we question things, we ask questions, we go out and we make observations, and we use a deductive process to come to conclusions based on our observations drawn from our questions. But in the new world that's trying to be foisted on us, the world of tyranny, there is no truth. Truth is what we want it to be. And if you have a world based just on wants, then as long as you want it, nothing's bad. As long as you want it, nothing's prohibited. Nothing is out of bounds. So when we look at the sex dogma, if the measure of morality is what anybody wants anywhere, there are no bounds. And a society with no bounds is a society without laws. And a society without laws is a society of brute force, law of the jungle, tyranny. So a lot of people I've talked to are complacent. They don't see the lion coming through the grass.
Or they pay no attention, don't care, they're too busy.
Discount it, oh, it can't be that bad. But what's happening is this is the wedge, the race and the sex dogma, the subjective reality, oh, you're really sitting on a watermelon, Mark. Right?
Yeah, it really seems like the gender thing right now is the big wedge that they're trying to shove.
And this is the wedge that unravels everything and kills makes us a lawless society, because it all stems from once you yield that there is no truth, once you yield that there is no real thing, that nothing is real, you're done. You're done. You can't make law. You can't be a self-governing people. That's it.
Yeah, it's and it's really the minority pushing the majority here, because I'll mention this. There's the recent Rasmussen poll says the survey found that 71% of American adults agree with the statement that there are two genders, male and female, including 57% who strongly agree, 23% don't, only 23% don't agree, and also 62% of Americans approve of legislation making it illegal to perform sex change surgeries on minor, including 46% who strongly approve of that, which it's almost crazy that it isn't more than that. But Jake had made the comment earlier, like how many of Democrats would feel that there are just two genders, probably fewer than 50%. I mean,
the extreme downtown Minneapolis, people who beat on each other in their own conventions, believe it. It's a pretty small group. And part of our job, Mark, part of what I've moved personally is from the political machinery largely to speaking a social truth. And part of my reasoning for doing that is politicians follow. And we need to assert publicly what is true. When I walk down my street and I see rainbow flags everywhere, I see all these assertions of a belief system, and it's not true. And so we need to assert what is true in the public to affect the social movement. That does two things. One is it says there is truth. I'll tell you what is true, but it also gives encouragement to the other people who are being bullied by a small proportion of our neighbors who are using coercion in the workplace, coercion in the school, coercion in society to bully this on everyone else. And we need to encourage each other, and embracing some symbols of what is true is a way of encouraging each other and building the majority into action.
Yeah. So we're in Pride Month right now, right? Isn't June?
Holy month for the state religion.
They get a whole month. And is there going to be a protest? I mean, did you do one? So is it Gleason or
Gleason, GLSEN, and I'm so grateful to Target because
Target. Well, now there's so many. Cracker Barrel went woke now. I see.
Bud Light couldn't get it done, but Target is a major contributor to a national organization that runs this program in our schools, and they've been undercover. We fought them 2 years in Stillwater with some success, but it did take some street action, old-fashioned street action. Target.
So Mike organizes like little protests outside the schools during these Pride days they have.
I'm a radical
dangerous
guy.
Man. Dangerous man.
But one of the good things that's come up with Target overstepping its common sense is that they've gotten good notoriety that the same advertising executives in Target who thought it was a swell idea to insult me when I walk in their front door, pressing the LGBTQIA multigender fluidity movement, see, I can now say that, is the same individuals, are the same individuals who are helping a group called GLSEN. Google glsen.org. They haven't been shy. They're going to get smarter now, but they haven't been shy, and they run Gender Sexuality Alliance, school kid.
Well, and it's to
programs.
hide it from the parents too.
To hide
Their
it.
goal is to hide it.
Well, if I told your audience, you wouldn't believe it. Go to their own website and look. Just look, because this is what's coming for your kids and your grandkids and your neighbor kids. It's best just to see it in their own words. That's just what I recommend. But this is an organization that is very stealthy by forming kids groups in school. Doesn't go on the calendar. Oh my goodness, isn't that convenient? Parents don't get to know. They don't get to know their kids are in an indoctrination club. The club can look for emotionally vulnerable kids who really need friends.
Yeah.
The term is love bombing. You can bring people in. You can say, you've got a lot of trouble, Mark. You've got so many troubles. Do you know, I think the trouble with you is you were born in the wrong body. And we will celebrate your self-discovery about this. We will help you become your authentic self because, when they just picked what your gender was when you were in the hospital, what do they know? But
right.
We know, and we love you so much. You can be part of our group. Everyone will celebrate you.
Having a penis means nothing.
So in the schools, this becomes a culture-building organization. So we first ran into this 2 years ago, and I'm going to give a nod to Alpha News. Alpha News published a picture of a poster in a Stillwater school, which they mistakenly put in the hallway where parents could walk by, that said, Glisten Day of Silence is coming up. School is going to be running this out of one of the teachers. This teacher is going to help distribute all the materials. Principal's office will be a center. You can go and pick up your materials. They'll help administer this. And what the Day of Silence is everybody in school promises at that time not to speak during the day as a symbol of solidarity. They're either with the movement or an ally of the movement. And allies we can talk about among all the 4 pillars of the woke movement. And we looked at this and went online, looked up GLSEN and what they were promoting through this, what it meant to be advocating and supporting this. And we thought, well, why are our employees running this? It's not on the calendar. It doesn't seem to be a school event, but it's a school day activity. everybody's behind it. What's it mean to my grandchild? Well, it means that my grandchild comes to school that day, and my grandchild might still believe that boys and girls are a fixed reality, and shockingly, and all of a sudden, everyone's saying is, Johnny, do you want one of our banners or ribbons to wear today showing you're with us?
Yeah.
I don't know. I says, oh, Johnny, we're giving out candy in the hallways, which occurs this year in some schools, but only for people wearing the right buttons. Are you a right-thinking boy, Johnny? Oh, I don't know, Miss Snows. Well, you think about it, but all the good boys are going to be sitting over at this table with candy, and you can decide whether you want to join us or not. And this is the kind of peer pressure from peers and teachers that was applied in the schools. So in Stillwater, we had a little fun thing where we got some parents together and we held up some signs before and after school where the parents queued up. And we just said, we just want parents told. So send out an email. If you can't cancel it, just send out an email. So as a parent, I get to talk to my kid.
Maybe keep your kid at home that day.
Yeah, or at least I get to talk to them about
Right.
it. Give them some armor to defend themselves. Oh, no, can't do that. This is not an official school program. This is just a kids club.
Even though they're using school resources.
And they're also
to a certain degree.
And they're using national materials supplied by a national movement on a day that's being celebrated nationwide as a day of indoctrination. School kid program. And then this year they also had a teacher's guide out. Deep breath. But so we stood outside. We handed out leaflets. Here, call the principal. Have this put on the calendar or cancel. That's all we wanted. Just calendar it or cancel it.
Yeah, and that's commendable. We need to fight at the local level. You get to the federal level, I don't know how much you can do
but
to battle there.
That worked. It took 3 days. Email did go out. It was pretty fluffy, but it went out. But most importantly, this year, year 2, we put out a note among our support group for the parents organization, and we know we have a watcher on our list, so it's sometimes helpful. Mm-hmm. And so we said, well, this year we're just going to be modest. We're just going to step this out to 2 schools. And then we wrote the school board, we wrote the administration, and we said, very, very appropriate, put this on the calendar, tell the parents. Don't be shy about it. Send out the GLSEN website, so don't rely on what Mike's going to say. Mike's this crazy radical guy standing out in the corner with a sign. Just send the web link, let parents take a look at the GLSEN website, and then they'll know, in GLSEN's own words, what's being prepared for their sons and daughters. Oh, couldn't do that. In the short, making the long story short, in the end, the school, we did have parents come and speak, school meeting on tape. The school did rein themselves in a little bit. The day went on. It was only administered by kids in the group. Kids were expected to talk and participate in the classes. The program was only during free periods and lunch, before and after school. So the pressure and the inappropriateness dwindled by quite a bit. But I'm convinced that would not occur if we didn't actually, for the first time ever, show up and pick at our own school last year and prepare to do it more this year. Right? It is real. You can't hide from people handing you a flyer while you're waiting in line.
Yeah. So how much time we got here left? So we got about 10 minutes or so. So I did want to get into the, so I've been doing a little research on, the Marxist movement, and Mike and I have had some pretty deep conversations about this. But so the Marxist manifesto, the Communist Manifesto was put out in 1848, and then compulsory schooling started in America in Massachusetts in 1852. And then you follow, this communist movement. You've got Lenin, Stalin, and then Mao. We're, it's my belief that this is all intentional, that we are moving towards socialism, which is just a quick stop on the path to communism. And I believe that it's, again, it's intentional. And on the drive here, I was asking Mike, how many people realize this is happening? There's so many thoughts I have, because like you mentioned the parents. sending their kids to school on this day of, this Pride Day. How many of the parents even understand the effect this might have on their kids, where the world has changed so much, where 1 out of 4 kids right now feels isolated? A lot of this is the pandemic, isolated kids. They're vulnerable. And so there's many questions there, but do you believe, like we talked on the drive here, does Obama, does Amy Klobuchar, does Walz know what they're doing? Are they aware? And do they want communism?
There's 2 pieces to this, Mark, and this is really important. Part of what I had the opportunity to do when I retired and had a pandemic to free up my time, I've had a few people who are true believers from this movement go out and have coffee with me. I've sat at a table with a guy who is a counselor running an emotional social learning program in a school district not my own, and this man, in his heart, believes in his mission. He believes in this transformation. He earnestly is, in his vision, making the world a better place.
They believe it.
With these kids becoming sexualized in kindergarten and first grade, so they're not burdened by the image of there just being 2 sexes and that heterosexuality is normal, because that would so constrain their pursuit of happiness and fulfillment by the absence of a sexual free-for-all through their school life and adult life afterwards. Believed it earnestly. So you do have some people that are true believers, and that phrase actually stems from the book of Eric Hoffer's, The True Believer and Mass Movements. These folks will not be convinced. They are not in the realm of rational discourse. They do not believe in a fixed reality. And there is a quote from the colonial period that's something to the effect of administering logic to a man who is administering wisdom to a man who has abandoned logic is like giving medicine to a corpse. Right? So there's one part of what we're going to have to work with. But the second part is I think it was a Leninist quote of useful idiots. And these are the people, they're just going along. I mean, everybody's doing it. Seems like the thing. Mm-hmm. Oh man, they're so warm and fuzzy and happy. They're just for goodness and niceness. And they just don't think about it, you know, and are pulled along. And historically, the true believers typically comprise as little as 10% in a society. Now here comes the scary part. The go along, get along folks can be 80%. And so what that means is it's the go along, get along folks we got to talk with. We got to just
open their
reach
eyes.
Reach them, because things will tip on reaching these people who might not be thinking about it much, but they just think, oh yeah, we want to. We're herding instinct animals. We want to go along. Oh man, we just want to blend in and be accepted, and that's how Stalinist revolutions, Maoist revolutions. This is how fascism in Europe went. This is how it happens, unless we thwart it actively. And the only way we can do that is if those who see it, say it, share it, affirm each other, band together, and actually sway this 80% in the middle, because they're swayable, but they need to be reached. They need to have the vision explained, so when they look out, they just don't say, "Oh, that doesn't make sense." They look out and they go, "Oh, 5 steps to tyranny, 4 pillars of woke. Oh yeah, I saw this last week. Oh yes, I see this today. Yeah. This is what's unfolding." And once we get people to just simple filter, it's like sunglasses in the sun. All of a sudden you go, "Oh, look at that." That's what we need to do.
Yeah,
absolutely, positively have to do it.
And get them to understand, the urgency. And it's best if you can get people to kind of make a self-discovery where you're not pushing your beliefs on them, trying to convince them, but to give them tidbits where they can make the discovery on their own, which is going to require a little research. I did want to also, something came to mind here. So, it feels right, like you said, it feels right to protect the trans movement. That's how these folks, and I had
they hijack compassion.
I had a conversation on Facebook with a gay man who was very much, and I think one of the comments I had made when the first event I was at that I met Mike, I was speaking and I gave the comment, like, I don't care what you do in your bedroom. I don't care. I don't dislike gay people. I don't. But just don't push it on my kids. And so this is the kind of, belief that I believe this gay man has, is that, he's gay, but he doesn't believe in the grooming aspect of it. But he brought up this thing, we need to protect people, because he's like, well, I was persecuted when I was young. I was teased and made fun of and, threatened. But I came back with, like, I was too. How do we do this? Kids bully. Kids are mean. I see it. I've got kids. So how do we do this where we just protect one class? Because I'll tell you what, when I was, I went to school in the 70s and 80s. The kid that took the most heat and got teased the most was the kid who had a lisp, buck teeth, and was, just didn't have a lot of self-esteem. I got teased more than the couple the two in my class of 300 feminine guys that ended up coming out later. But I took more for being born on the other side of the tracks. I was the poor kid trying to keep up with the rich kids. Like, I got teased. There's kind of a higher, kids are gonna tease, kids are gonna bully. So how do we just protect one group of people? I'd like your comments on that, because that's something that I haven't talked to you about. But yeah, I don't believe that these people should be persecuted. But we shouldn't also be presenting it, making it so available to them, because these kids are vulnerable.
Boy, I'm glad you brought that up, Mark. First, I'm going to put a pitch. Go to 12project.com. There is 3 simple paragraphs. Read them. The words are very carefully constructed. And we can circle back to that in a moment. But the linchpin is, we have to recognize that there is such a thing as human nature. And part of human nature is that we guide our children to civility. Now, part of the woke movement and the wilding of America and the lawlessness of America is asking the kids to be in charge. And that is wrong. That's foolish.
Destroy the family, let the state be the parents.
That's correct. And if you watch for this, you're going to see this. The schools brag about empowering the kids. Well, my question is, who's the grown-up in the room, and what's their job? And as grown-ups, it's our job to sustain civilization in our society and to instill civilization in our children, in our community's children.
It starts at home.
It does. And how this is twisted on us by our predators is this. In the schools, one of the big footholds for aggressive indoctrination were anti-bullying rules and laws. They said, bullying is bad, right? Mark, kids shouldn't pound on each other in the hallway, should they? No, that's bad. Beating each other bloody in the bathrooms, that's bad. We all go, yes. The head goes up and down. And then they come back and they go, words are violence. If people disagree with me, if we have unbelievers in the school who have not embraced our belief system, we feel they're going to hurt us. Oh, okay, well, we'll say we're not going to hurt you because of your belief system. Well, then the next step is, if we have unbelievers in the school who do not conform to our beliefs, they're a danger to me. So I now have to force everyone to comply with my beliefs, or I don't feel safe. And you've already told me you're against bullying. Well, now bullying is you not conforming to my beliefs. And this is the progression, and this is the false flag. So now we're in a school where we can't use certain words. We must use certain words. The school has become sacred space to the new state religion. And because it's reached the proportions of almost a state religion, the expectation is universality. I don't tolerate you. I don't tolerate your kid. Because if anyone, anywhere, is not conforming to the woke belief system, you're a threat to me. In fact, we will never reach our utopia mark if there is one real or imagined dissenter anywhere. And that's where we are. The dissent is not allowed under the guise of tolerance and goodness and anti-bullying, society-wide.
Yeah, it's just horrible. That's a lot of wisdom there, folks. What do we got here? I think we're about out of time, man. We could go on forever. Mike can have long conversations at the kitchen table with coffee, so I'm going to have Mike on again. But I did want to read this. Stand against the dogma of division. Proponents of endless categories of race and gender use the divisions to claim resources and opportunities for themselves as victims and to take retribution from others accused of privilege, us. We oppose this dogma, division, and the proselytizing of this belief system through relentless propaganda. So please do go to, let's make Mike infamous, at least infamous, and eventually famous.
That would be good.
This, again, I believe this idea is necessary to push against all the rainbow flags on our streets.
And our neighbors are looking for your encouragement.
Yeah, so please do go to 1-2 Project. Not all of the merchandise is available at this time. It's growing. This is just kind of at its birth.
Actually, the really good-looking clothing is available online. It's a little more pricey, but we're also going to be coming around to some events with a limited inventory.
Yeah, these T-shirts are amazing.
Signs are available.
Flags coming.
Flags are coming. We're working on our supply chain. I have the dream of seeing signs and flags out in the street proclaiming truth, so people know they're not alone.
That's the thing is, people, there are a lot of people, and I've said this all along, that if everyone who saw this bull crap would just step up and fight, we can end it very quickly. But people feel alone. They don't know who is on their side. I don't want to say even their sides. People don't know who has common sense. And this is like, one way to do it.
I might also add, we have a mom shirt too, so the
moms
moms don't actually have to read the dad shirt.
Good merchandise.
So it's
and
it's
I'll be
fun.
at a couple events coming up, one in Wisconsin tomorrow night. I should mention too, please, if you haven't yet, get your tickets for our event September 10th in Mounds View with Aaron Seary. Aaron Seary is the attorney who's been taking on the federal government, and he's the one who forced the FDA to release the Pfizer trial data. He just won a case to make them release the Moderna data. Remember, these companies wanted to hide this data for 75 years. Moderna wanted to hide theirs for 25 years. He just created a religious exemption in Mississippi. He stopped the vaccine mandate in D.C. The man is a hero in our movement. You're going to get a chance to meet him. This is going to be an intimate event. He's going to give a presentation and then do an audience Q&A. So you can get your tickets at tempotickets.com/Aaron Seary. And I'd appreciate it if we put up some money to have this event, to get him here, and we just want to break even, so we need people to buy some tickets for that. But it is.
And thank you, Mark, for leading the fight. You're at the nexus of keeping things real, helping us rally, and I just want to recognize you're doing such a good job and such important work, and thank you very much for doing it.
Well, it's my duty. That was another thing, too. It's not my pleasure. None of this is my pleasure. I don't want to be fighting this fight. I don't. I wish the world was in a way where I could just be, living my life and, going camping, which I'm going to do next week. But, we have to fight. And, again, it's my duty. And pull your kids out of the schools. Mike and I have been working on this.
Yep.
There's a lot blossoming here, and thanks to Mike giving me good advice and figuring out how we can make it easier because a lot of folks do want to pull their kids out of this public system of indoctrination. They don't know how. They have 2 jobs. They work during the day. The resources aren't there. It's not free. So I'm working with so stay tuned. I'll be having Mike back on here again as needed because there's.
Can I drop a couple names?
Absolutely.
Before we go?
Yes.
I do want to just say that people are looking for how do I be a candidate? What do I do? Leadership Institute is running good training programs. The Minnesota Patriots are beginning to coordinate regional programs. The Minnesota Parents Alliance is also supporting conservative candidates. Look about. Somewhere in your community are other parents who are looking to connect up with these resources, and I highly recommend them. Child Protection League is also posting really excellent things online, and most of us are beginning to look at this sort of system. If you can get your kids out of the public school system into a safe place, get them out. If you can't get them out, how do you defend yourself in place? Fixing Stillwater Schools and other places are getting resources online to help you defend in place till you can get out. And if you can make change. There's different ways of doing it. We're working together. Work together. Go to the websites, see these organizations, and lean into it. There are people waiting for you to show up.
There are resources. And, homeschooling is, there are sacrifices you have to make. We homeschool my 3 little boys, and they're definitely, at first there were sacrifices to make, and right now it's a blessing. I don't feel like there are any sacrifices. For one thing, your kids grow up so fast, and if they're in the public school system, they're gone most of the time. They get up, they got to get on the bus, they go to school, they get home, they got to eat, and then there's some extracurricular thing. You're not getting your time. I get so much time with my kids. It is a blessing. So it feels like we could have went for a 2-hour episode, but we don't like to
coffee.
we don't keep these. We don't want to make the shows too long. We want you to stay tuned for the hour or so we have them on. So I'm going to have Mike on again. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Truth Expedition. Keep fighting, speak the truth, stay free, don't tread on me, and don't shed on me.